actually, I might do white. Cool. Alrighty, so as I said, if we're going to do an ankle, most of the time it'll just be prophylactic or preventative, and most of the time that will be for lateral support of the ankle. Biggest thing with ankles, or one of the biggest things, is firstly make sure the skin is clean and dry. So they'll often come over in bare feet from the club rooms, they'll walk over and they'll have all sorts of grot on the bottom of it. Make sure it's clean. If it's sweaty, dry it down. So there's towels in all the kits and paper towel, but one of the tricks is sometimes you'll take people during a game, they'll be really, really sweaty. So most of our kits will have some tape spray, but otherwise deodorant. Ask them for deodorant, spray some deodorant on, and that actually helps to dry the skin out. Otherwise you're really struggling to get tape to stick on sweaty skin. The other thing that can often happen is players may come in quarter time, half time, and say, "Oh, can you re-tape it or tighten it up?" Unless the tape's really pulled away, don't take it off, because you'll always get tape to stick on top of tape better once they're sweating. So it's another thing that, don't remove the tape from them unless you have to. Everyone that comes up for taping, you can be pretty well assured that they've been taped before. But if you're taping somebody for the first time, you should always say to them, "Have you had tape before?" Make sure they're not allergic to it. And your easiest thing, what they react to, is the zinc oxide, the white stuff on the brown tape. And you just ask them if they tolerate Band-Aids. If they tolerate Band-Aids, then they'll tolerate tape generally for the length of time we're going to put it on. If you're worried about people, there's this hypoallergenic tape that we can use. For the sake of, other than shoulders, I will use this all the time as anchors. For an ankle in sport, I won't, unless they've got, sometimes people will come up to you and they'll have a rash because they've had it taped. They've had an ankle sprain from a couple of weeks ago and they've had it taped for 2 weeks and forgotten to take it off, and they've taken it off this morning knowing that you were going to do it again. Then I would use a hypoallergenic underneath it. Okay, but otherwise, for the sake of sport, we're only going to have tape on for an hour or two. So using this is not necessary unless they have a predisposition to a reaction. So we want the foot clean, we want it dry. When we tape it, we want to tape it as close to plantar grade or 90 degrees as we can. So don't get them to force it too far up. And we also, same thing as when you're taping, you don't want to force it too far out, or you're going to actually angulate, you're going to change the way they wait there. So what we're trying to do is just tape the ankle into as neutral a position as we can, which is close to plantar grade, okay, and no eversion or inversion, it's neutral. So taping, come on over this side, guys, and you'll be able to see probably a bit better. The anchor, we've got a funnel-shaped shin, okay, so if you're going to try and tape your anchor directly around, what you're going to do is you're going to get more ridges and bubbles than you need. So when you're taping your anchor, just angle it slightly down and it will come slightly back up, and what you'll get with that is a perfect conforming anchor tape. But that's one of the common mistakes we see, is straight around and then you've got to press it down and it does, it bubbles and it ridges. It gets hard when we do heel locks, but generally the less bubbles and the less ridges we have, the better, because what can happen with that when they come off is they can have little tape cuts or blisters where the tape's pinched. So that's the first little trick, is your anchor is on a slight angle. And then the other thing to remember is if you're taping a problem, you're always starting on the opposite side to the problem. So if it's a lateral ligament problem, you're starting medial, you're ending up lateral. That's 95% of what you're going to see. 5% or less will be medial problems, but it's simple. If their pain is here, start opposite end medial. Okay. When you're going to tape, the malleolus becomes your landmark. So what I'm going to do is I will do 3 stirrups, and 1 heel lock each way. Okay, so that's my standard taping for every ankle that I tape. I won't do less, but I might add more. If somebody's got an acute ankle or they're really sore or first going back, I might do 3 anchors, a heel lock each way, and add a figure of 6 or something just to really give them a bit more. But the basic foundation that does the job most of the time, 3 anchors to 1 heel lock each way. So use your landmarks. Okay, my first strip of tape will be just over but behind the malleolus. Same on the other side. My second one will be directly over it, and my third one will be slightly anterior. So you never should put bits of tape one directly over the other. You've always got overlap. Okay, because then you're going to get more skin stick, otherwise those 2 bits of tape will tend to move one on the other. So always try and have at least a little bit of tape on new skin. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure she's clean. You'll find it'll drive you nuts, but every time you go to do your stirrup, they're back down there. Okay, so you've got to keep reminding them, hold it up, you do your stirrup, they're back down there, hold it up. So we want it neutral. Okay, first strip of tape, you can see just touches the edge of the medial malleolus. It comes behind the heel, it comes back up. From here, what I will do is firmly, without yanking her into eversion, I'm just going to keep her there, tape it firmly, get rid of any wrinkles that are there, and that's my first stirrup. Okay, second one. If you just come around this side, because I'll show you one of the landmarks. There's 2 landmarks you want to be careful of with ankle taping. So base of 5th met, which is sitting there. If possible, we don't want to tape over it, okay? Because if you're going to tape on the edge of that, you're probably going to get a tape cut. So another common mistake is we see tape that comes too much into the midfoot. All we're trying to do with ankle taping is stabilise the hind foot. Okay, they're not, or they can, but they're not going to sprain it through the midfoot. They're going to tape it here, so our tape needs to be quite posterior in the rear foot. So you don't want to tape over the top of the 5th met. And the other one, which is where you will get tape cuts, is the anterior joint line. If you've got tape crossing here with a joint that's constantly doing that, they'll probably get a tape cut. Okay, and if they get a tape cut, they're like paper cuts. They're really painful, and they can become infected because of the sweat, and then you've got to tape them up on Tuesday night and they've got this big cut, which I'll show you how to tape over that. So my second stirrup, I'm going to overlap my existing tape by about 2/3, so that what I've got is about 1/3 of the tape showing, and I've got 1/3 of tape on skin. All right, from here, again, I'm going to grab it, make sure I'm pulling up without creating any further movement of the foot, lay it down, get rid of any wrinkles. That's stirrup 2. Stirrup 3 is just over the anterior aspect of the malleolus. 1/3 of the previous tape showing and 1/3 of new tape on new skin. You can see I'm miles from her base of 5th met, okay, nowhere near it. But that's going to give her the rear foot stability that we need. So 3 stirrups, really quite simple. Start opposite, end up on the side you're trying to stabilise, keep the foot neutral, okay? Heel locks is the ones that you're going to need to practice a little bit. But I think really, if somebody needs their ankle taped and you're not doing heel locks, you've missed the key part. So the heel lock, you could almost tape an ankle with I'd rather tape it with just heel locks than just stirrups. Okay, so I think the heel locks are really important. There's different ways you can do heel locks, so depending on which video, which person, whatever you look at, there's different methods. The method I use...
You don't lock that, you don't put an anchor?
Not yet, no. So what I'll do now is I'll go, it doesn't matter with your heel lock which side you start on, because you're going to do both ways. You're going to lock them both ways, so you can start whichever way you want. So I will run my heel lock from basically the anterior shin down under the heel, and this is where it gets hard with rigid tape not to get creases. You're going to get some, don't worry about it, but don't make the creases on the sole of the foot, because it's like having a tiny little stone in their shoe. If you get a big crease under there and they're running on it, it's going to hurt their heel. So what I do is I come down, I come under, I come behind, and then from there I'm ending up back in the direction that I started. So it'll make more sense when I do it on the other side. So when I'm locking off this side, I'm going to start anterior shin. I'm going to head, I'm missing the base of the fifth and I'm missing the anterior joint line. Okay, I come under, I come behind the calcaneus, and I come back up in the line or in the direction that I started from. Lock it off. So those two bits of tape almost end up over the top of each other. There's no wrinkles on the bottom, and then I'll lock it off same way, slight angle down, back up. Make sure with these ones that you're not, as you're going, what you don't want to be doing is really pulling the tape tight. Like this bit, I will get up to, my last half of the tape, cut it off, and literally just lay that down really lightly. Because what's going to happen over the course of the game, they're going to swell a little bit because of blood flow. If you do a tight strip of tape around here, it'll become a tourniquet. So you can get calf cramps and you can get tape cuts. And so your anchors are really quite light. And so what I've done there, 3 stirrups, 2 heel locks, nothing over the joint line, nothing over the fifth met, also nothing over the Achilles. So you don't want anything over the Achilles or they'll get a tape cut there. And that is all I will do. Okay.